pretty quickly, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, this has been an eventful weekend.
I learned about anabaptist. Anabaptist.
Yeah. Anabaptist, yeah, that's where we're going.
This is anabaptist.
John 60.
Does anybody know anything about Anabaptists?
Isn't that Amish?
We'll start from the beginning and go back. I've got a pretty good Church of the Brethren is one of the main ones that most people see. But the Anabaptist just means baptized again. We're going to do the sermon right now. It started in the 1500s with the Reformation, and it actually started with the printing of the Bible in the vernacular and the language that people could speak, because before this time the priest would read the Bible in Latin and tell the people what he wanted them to hear, and the people didn't know what was actually in the Bible other than what the priest told them. So when they started to read the Bible themselves, once again critical thinking came to the fore, and people began to say, "You're not telling us what's really in here." So things kind of took off from there. Anyway, you know, the Catholic Church had always practiced infant baptism, but everybody knows that Christ was baptized as an adult, and John was baptized as an adult, and at the time of Christ, they didn't baptize kids. You had to choose to be baptized. You had to say you wanted to be a Christian. And that's what these people read in the Bible and said, if it was good enough for Jesus, it's good enough for us. So. Okay, welcome to First Universalist of New Madison on this dreary day. It's nice to have rain, but maybe not quite 7 or 8 days of it. We had quite a bit of wind the other day. My power's out at one of my houses in Wayne Lakes. It actually twisted the cord so much that it broke the supply cord from AES into the house. So I don't know how long it's going to be before they get back. I mean, there's
Be on the bottom of the list, just one residence.
One house, so there's power out everywhere. But I have a generator, so they're hooked up, so they should be all right as long as that keeps going. Any announcements?
Just at mid-October, if you remember the date, we've been invited once again, just to repeat, to the El Dorado to listen to Donnie Payton, who has a new book out and a sermon to go along with it. And I think it's October 16th. I'm sorry that I did not bring my calendar. But anyway,
was it the 16th?
Next week. We have about 3 weeks in it.
Or was it the last weekend? Because I thought Derek said then December 2nd was going to be something.
It could be.
We have time.
October 16th.
Yeah, we'll look it up before we get there.
And then our union service, and this is really far out planning, but remember, it's usually this Sunday after Thanksgiving, and I believe it will be this year also. Remember, we hosted El Dorado back at the picnic in April or May, somewhere in there anyway. So we'll be going to El Dorado, but that'll be late November, and we'll get the word out well in advance of that. But just for those who like to plan ahead, that's a union service we have once a year, back and forth, and it's their turn now, and it'll be the Sunday after Thanksgiving.
Okay, we had the convocation this last weekend at El Dorado. I had the flu, COVID, positive tested COVID. So it knocked me down for like 2 or 3 days, and then it took me a little time to recuperate. So I was sorry I missed the cleanup here. The Saturday, I wanted to kind of be here when everybody was here, and I actually wanted to be there Sunday. But I really don't want to give this to anybody else. So
I can give a brief report on that if you like, just real brief.
Yes.
There were about 18 people from the convocation that El Dorado hosted last weekend. And so on Saturday afternoon, they came here to the church. Kenny gave a wonderful talk on the history about the church. If you want to say anything about that, Kenny, feel free. But everyone had a good time. They had great questions.
Yeah.
And I think from what I hear, they were pretty impressed with the church.
They liked it a lot, and they were a diverse group, obviously. UU would be a diverse group in terms of their states they represented, from Georgia and North Carolina and Georgia, as well as Tennessee. We had several from, maybe 3 or 4 from Belleville, which is a church between, actually south of Mansfield, a little closer to Mansfield than it is Columbus.
Was that one gentleman, the son of Reverend LaPointe?
Thank you, yes.
A former minister of theirs, Reverend LaPointe, at El Dorado. His son was that group.
And well into his late 80s, you would say.
Pardon me?
Maybe late 80s.
Probably.
And of course, he connected here, but he also connected to the folks at El Dorado, because on Sunday we went to El Dorado last week, and so we got to meet up with some of the same people. Tim gave a wonderful sermon, and we got to visit some more after the service with the folks that visited us the previous evening or afternoon.
So we did a little community building. That was good. I'm really sorry to have missed it. That would have been the highlight for mine. But life gives you lemons and you make lemonade. So, all right. Any other announcements? Let's do the prelude then. Prospect. Prospect. So nice to have music. Okay. Our chalice lighting, we gather, which is most important to us. We gather, we bring our sorrows, our disappointments, our failures. We gather for healing, for laughter, to rejoice. We gather to find new ways of loving, new ways of thinking, new ways of being. We gather, yes, always we gather. For it is in gathering, and I left that out, so have any suggestions? It is in gathering. Mine is we create community. We create support. We find each other, and we find those who are lost. You can fill that in yourself. This week we are talking, I don't know how I got on, well, I know how I got on it. There's a song by Andy Murray called Full Measure Man. He is a Brethren songwriter and a Brethren member, Church of the Brethren. So it got me thinking about Full Measure Man and what it means to be a good Christian, what it means to be a good person. And that got me thinking about anabaptism, which, as I explained before, anabaptism means baptized again. That came from the Reformation when people started to read the Bible in their own language and started to interpret what Christ had said, and they started to notice that babies weren't baptized in the time of Christ. adults were baptized. You had to make a choice to say, I want to follow Christ and I want to be a Christian, and then you were baptized. So Anabaptist means baptized again, but actually they would argue with that because in the time of the 1500s, the Reformation, they were baptized again as adults. Now, if you're Church of the Brethren, Amish, any of the Anabaptist churches, you do not get baptized as a baby. You have to become an adult and choose to be baptized. So, one of the reasons I brought it up, this picture is a guy named Dirk Wilhelms. He was one of the first Anabaptists, and when Anabaptism first started, and this started in Switzerland and Holland, when these people started preaching this, and these were simple farmers, these were not theologians or educated people, started saying, this is what we need to do, we believe in this, they were what? Persecuted by the established church. The church, the Catholic Church, said you cannot be rebaptized, that you've been baptized once, that's the law of the church. And what did they do in the 1500s? What did they do from the time immemorial if you did something they didn't like?
Stoned them to death.
You stoned them to death, you drowned them, you burned them at the stake, you drawed and quartered them, you just executed them by hanging. This gentleman, if you see in this picture, Dirk, was imprisoned and sentenced to die. He escaped, this is in Holland, crossed the river in the wintertime, and his pursuers, one of them fell in the water. So Dirk turned around, went back, pulled him out of the water, and saved his life. As a thank you, they put him in handcuffs, took him back to the village, and burned him at the stake. That is what is the core principle of Anabaptism. You believe in your faith so much that you will sacrifice your life. You will do something to help someone else that can be a sacrifice to you. That is what, and we came to the Church of the Brethren as adults when we got our foster kids and really kind of fell in love with it. And that is the reason I am now a UU Church of the Brethren composite, because the churches are very close together. Think for yourself, independent, democratic, choose what you want to do the right thing, not because someone else tells you to do it, but because you have discovered it through the sense of community, by talking with your brothers and sisters, by reading the Bible, by reading any philosophical book that leads you in the right path. So, that's why Dirk is here. Our affirmation, this is a blessing for canvassers and callers upon their return.
Him first.
Oh, yeah, that's right, opening hymn, 291. And we need to do this one because the Germanic heritage of Church of the Brethren, Die Gedanken sind frei, 291. But I think what I will, for my spirit is free. That captures the spirit of the early Anabaptists and of the Unitarian Universalist. Even to this day, that could be our theme song. Okay, now affirmation of blessing for canvassers and callers upon the return. A election is coming up, and there are canvassers out there, and there's callers out there, and people are knocking my signs down in Wayne Lakes, and we just put them back up again. It may be one of us was in the presence of greatness today, strengthened someone's resolve, cracked somebody's defensive shield, or felt our own shell soften. It is more than possible that one of us tended to someone's wounded spirit today, interrupted someone's isolation, awakened dormant seeds of hope in a weary heart. A holy and cleansing anger sparks into life when confronted with the possibility that one of us was afraid today, or had our own sacredness denied, or endured ignorance and hatred that left us feeling covered in filth. Though it is equally likely that one of us allowed our full divinity to blaze forth today, refusing to be erased, trusted our own strength, found the will to lean into the discipline of persistence. As we set down this work for the day, may we release it with all that has wounded us, keeping close only what has fed and enlivened our spirit, strengthened our will, reinforced the promise of our collective power, and reminded us once again of the fundamental truth that when we bless the world with our love, we are blessed in return. All right, our children's story is a song about, and I'll get to this in a second. We'll see if this will play.
His granddad, who was a farmer in Lebanon County, over near Mount Gretna. We're going to listen to that story and watch a little video right now.
Granddad was a farmer. I guess it looked funny to some. With his big black hat and his plain cut coat, but it didn't look funny to his grandson. He was stern and kind and strong and gentle, about the wisest man alive. At least that's the way he looked to a little boy who just turned 5. Granddad used to take me when he hauled his grain to town. Something always happened there, made me feel that he was quite renowned. When we pull up close to the mill house, the miller would look out. As soon as he could see that it was Granddad's house, you could always hear him shout, "He's a full-measured man, won't tell you a lie." Cyrus rolls his wagon to his scales, just wave him right on by. Never on the devil, sign with a shake of a hand. Unaffected, well-connected, simple as a man. When I upload the wagon, I remember Granddad would say, "Give 2 full measures for 2 bushel bag. Things just work out much better that way. There's some folks think it's worth it to leave some out the cheap. But I'm a little too tight to sell my soul for a nickel's worth of wheat. He's a full-measured man, won't tell you a lie." Cyrus rolls his wagon to the scales, just wave him right on by. Never on the level, sign with a shake of a hand. Unaffected, well-connected, simple as a man. Many years gone by, but it still makes me kind of proud. To think way back on how that miller used to stand by the mill and holler out loud, "You can let old Cyrus drive on in, you don't need to check his wheat. If he says his bags are full, they're full, that makes the deal complete. He's a full-measured man, won't tell you a lie." Cyrus rolls his wagon to his scales, just wave him right on by. Never on the level, sign with a shake of a hand. Unaffected, well-connected, simple
A full measure man. Church of the Brethren started out as a farmer's church. It was a farmer's church until maybe the last 30 or 40 years. It still is primarily a rural church. You don't find many urban churches of the Brethren. And one of the things that they hold close to them is the full measure man. A handshake was how you did your deal. And we'll go through some of the traits. And these are not just Church of the Brethren. If you think about the Amish, the way they live, the Mennonites, the way they live, they all have the same basic principles in mind. That handshake honesty, something that used to be held up to esteem in American history, something that people used to aspire to and say this is what your kids should grow up to be, doesn't seem to be quite doing that at the present time, so we'll have to see if we can do something about that. But anyway, that's where the full measure man came from. And that's very close to my heart, starting out as a farmer. All right, joys and concerns. We got a bunch of them. Yes?
I know this is a joy, or a concern, but not this past Friday, but the Friday before that, we got together with a bunch of people who moved down to Springfield, Ohio, and ate at a Haitian restaurant.
All right.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. It was packed. We were in minority, and that was pretty cool. We at least stood out like white folk in the black neighborhood. Oh wait, we were white folk in the black. But anyhow, it was good, and the food was okay, but there was a lot of confusion. I think they were still trying to get their procedures down and all that. But you know, it just, I guess I guess the word is solidarity. I mean, after the Orange Crybaby was saying that at the debate, I'm like, are you kidding me? I still see Trump signs. I thought that they'd be coming down like crazy, but they're still not. That's my concern. And I got something to say. When I listen to that song you just played, can you possibly play a sad song on a banjo? It's just a happy instrument, right?
I've never really, I can't remember one right offhand.
Yeah.
But my wife is, she's pretty up on country western and banjos. She plays the banjo. I'll have to ask her if there is. I can't imagine there's not some sad song on a banjo, but we'll have to look and see. It's not exactly going to be at the highest of my list of things to do is find a sad song for a banjo. But I think I'm going to talk to my wife. I didn't think about that. Her church at New Carlisle is in Clark County. She spends time at the Springfield Hospital. And they do go out to dinner sometimes after church. I'm going to ask her if the church and her would be interested in going to Springfield and eating at a Haitian restaurant after church.
I remember the name, but it's right off of 70. You go into Springfield, and I think it's the first exit you go around, and I'm going to say you go left or north and south, and it's right on the left-hand side. And memory doesn't serve me today, so
if you're interested. If anybody else is interested, I would like to do that with her. But if anybody else is interested, we can their church is until 10:30, so we could actually have church and then drive over there by the time theirs is over and then join them to go to Springfield to the restaurant. So if anybody's interested in that, let me know. I think I'll see if she wants to do it. If she doesn't, then we'll do it on her own. Springfield actually has some pretty interesting things. There's a Frank Lloyd Wright house there that I highly recommend that you see. If you know anything about Frank Lloyd Wright, pretty amazing in a town the size of Springfield to have a house like that.
And a big museum too.
Yes.
National Trail Museum, or whatever its name is, I forgot now.
Pennsylvania House.
Pennsylvania House, yes.
And it's just very authentic and really nice, like good collections.
So we can go over and eat and actually spend the afternoon there doing some interesting stuff. So if anybody's interested in that. Okay, that's a joy, and actually a joy and a sorrow at the same time, a complaint. They are still doing that, still saying that they're eating cats and dogs. I mean, how? It escapes me, and that's what's the worrisome part of what we're facing.
Well, they want to believe it. And so really there's not much we can do about it, but they will reiterate that, meaning people of that particular party or persuasion, if you will, not party, and they enjoy it. It gives them a perverse sense of joy. So they'll continue to say that. But I think the bottom line is, in my concern, without being too political, I don't know the exact history, I've not checked with the fact checkers, what have you, but I understand that a comment or two, a concern were coming from citizens into our Ohio Senator's office in Washington DC, J.D. Vance's office. And then it was released from their office, or at least initially, it was released concerning eating of cats and dogs. And it came very isolated from a couple of comments. So I prepared a letter to my senator who represents all of Ohio and shared my disappointment with causing a small community already deluged with additional problems, including bomb threats.
And actually, Richmond paper yesterday, the Richmond school system has already had 4 bomb threats, and they've only been in school for 3 weeks.
Wow.
And these are legitimate. I mean, they actually shut the school down and sent the police in to search. They weren't, they probably, well, they were obviously pranks, but they were serious enough pranks that they took them seriously. So this is spreading. I guess what we were talking about is the facts are there now. This started with a lady whose daughter's sister's cat disappeared, and they just suspected the Haitian neighbors of taking it, and then they found the cat in the basement like 2 days later. And she's apologized publicly and said she had no intention of starting this whole thing, and it got on Facebook. But the thing is, we have prominent politicians boosting this lie when they know
from their office.
Yeah, when they know it's a lie. They know it's not true. The mayor, the police chief, the board of people, the street department, nobody can find any examples of any pets being missing. Nobody's come forward and said that. The only woman that they've arrested for eating a cat is from Akron or some other town. And the only other picture they have is the guy that picked up a dead goose off the street and is carrying it down the street, and they're accusing him of stealing. So it's just, the whole thing is made up out of whole cloth. And yet people continue to push it, and people continue to believe it. So it's a sad situation. Israel, things are just getting worse, not just better. Israel now has assassinated the top leader of Hezbollah, not Hezbollah, Hamas. No, maybe it was Hezbollah in Beirut. Blew up an apartment building and killed, I don't know, 50, 60, at least 50, 60 people to kill this one guy, and which says they're legitimately doing this, and they say it over and over again. And the hostages are not being released. They're being basically executed as time goes along. So just an unbelievably sad situation. And Ukraine is not improving either. We have one politician saying that he would settle it in 2 days, and Putin is a good friend of his. And he just wants the Ukraine to give up and surrender. Where do we come to in this as a country when we are now pro-communist, pro-Russian? That's just unbelievable. Let's see. Oh, I got a long email from Margaret. I don't think she would mind. We're going to light a candle for Margaret. She's had multiple problems, family health, and some good things happening. She said Patrick is getting early retirement, so they're happy about that. So I haven't had a chance to reply to her yet. It was a pretty long email. So I'm going to ask her if we can pass that out, pass that information along, and if she consents, then we'll share with that next week. Would love to have Margaret here. She said, I hope she can watch it on Facebook, or not Facebook, but YouTube, because I know she doesn't like Facebook. But we send her the outline Mike does every week. So she said she was real happy with the reading, so something must have touched her there just kind of by accident. So hopefully Margaret's doing well and can get up here and share some time with us and let us know how she's doing. Let's see. Oh, Curly hurt his leg again. The other leg now, 30% tear in his tendon. So I don't know what's going to happen. He may come back to my house, at least for a while.
His racing days are probably over.
Dan, the trainer, says he knows a veterinarian in New York that has some kind of miracle glue that you inject.
Not with two bad legs.
So, well, he had the bad legs and he was coming back. He was actually doing better in his racing and actually finishing stronger each time. And I'm willing to do anything we can do to give it a shot. I mean, if not, he'll come back and go into retirement. And pull a buggy or a sleigh or just kind of hang out. But I'd like to give him every chance. So anyway, thoughts and prayers for Curly's recovery.
And Joey, that I forgot to mention, I think I put it in our little email yesterday, but all the storm, all the limbs, and all the leaves blown down on Friday evening, a good number of them are up. If you notice, the church lawn and around is a little clearer than most of the neighbors' places, and that's thanks to Tim and to Chaz and to Paula. I came over for a while. We got most of it raked up, and it looks a little bit better. So we thank the church family for that.
Yep, there was quite a bunch of leaves, and I don't know whether we
A lot
talked
of
about it.
limbs,
It almost looked like
twigs.
bigger branches had come down, but I didn't see any, so I thought maybe the city had cleaned up the big ones and left the brush, but
I think it was just a small.
that's what we had. So anyway, I took that home up to the lake. I took the branches up to the lake, and that's what I was tell Chaz. When you get these little sticks, don't just throw them in the trash can, because I use those to start fires up there. So
I've got 2 boxes for you.
if anybody has little sticks for kindling, put them in a box or a bag or something, and I'll take them up there, because we light fires all the time, and we have a little one of those burn things on your deck on the back. It's enclosed so you don't set your deck on fire. But you need kindling, you need little branches and things to start. You can't start out with big logs. So I can use all that I can get. So if anybody has that and wants to get rid of it. The other thing is Helena, I don't know which the pronunciation is. Over 60 people have died, and that's from Florida. And that started out as a tropical storm. And when it hit the Gulf of Mexico, because the water temperature in the Gulf of Mexico is like 6 to 10 degrees warmer than it usually is, it gained strength into a category 4 by the time it hit Florida. And it just devastated Florida and actually up and through Carolina and Georgia. If you saw the news where that hospital, the dam broke in the hospital, 2 or 3 stories was completely water clear up to the top, and there were 50 patients and staff that had to be rescued by helicopters. Just unbelievable, and so lucky that the building is still standing. Think what would have happened if that building would have collapsed in the flood. You would have had mass death going on at a hospital.
In Tennessee as well.
And Tennessee, and that's kind of what we're getting. We've had like 5 and 6 days of rain now, which we needed rain, but I'm not sure we needed quite this much.
Yeah.
So for all the people, and even up there, the wind was really bad last week. So there's still people out of power in Montgomery County, Darke County, Preble County, all through the state of Ohio. So our thoughts and prayers go with them and any support we can give them. Okay, Anabaptist. Let me go to the history. I told you started in the Reformation, 1525, 1530, something like that. Luther posted his thesis, and then Zwingli. There's a bunch of other people that said, and this all started because these people started to read the Bible in their vernacular. It was printed first in Latin, and then printed in German, and then in different dialects in German, then in Swiss dialects, and then in every language basically in the world. People started to read the Bible, and they started to say, what we've been told is not actually what the Bible is all about. We want to see what Christ actually, how he actually lived and what he actually did, and we want to pattern our lives on being Christian. So that's kind of what happened to the Anabaptists. Some of their primary beliefs are freedom in religion, a liberty of conscience. In other words, you choose what to believe and what not to believe. You don't believe what you're told to believe. And this was the primary practice of any of the early religions, Muslims, Catholics. If you didn't believe, you were tortured and killed if you didn't assent to what the church told you to believe, or you were condemned to go to hell. Separation or nonconformity to the world. This is a primary thing for the Anabaptist churches or the peace churches or the nonviolent churches. That was where the beginning of separation of church and state started, because prior to this time, the church was an extension of the state. Either the church was the state, like the early Holy Roman Empire, or the king or a ruler of the state announced what the religion was for his place, just like the King of England, Henry VIII, changed from Catholic to the Church of England. When he wanted something different than what the church wanted, he made his own church. And then everybody had to follow along with what the king or the ruler said. Early Anabaptists, the early nonconformists, said that shouldn't be the way it is. You should be able to choose what you want to do. The first people who were saying liberty and choice is important, democracy is important. They also were very strong for non-resistance, and that's been interpreted as pacifism. The pacifist churches in the United States, historically, the Mennonites and the Church of the Brethren and the Quakers are the pacifist churches. They all have reformist roots, and that's where that came from, because Christ said, turn the other cheek. These people read the Bible, and when Christ said to do it, they did it. They actually tried to live their life patterned on Christ. And that's kind of where they come with simple living. Church of the Brethren is known for simple living, and that's part of being a farmer's church, part of having a handshake agreement. They do not use the courts of law. They don't sue people. The Church of the Brethren does not believe in suing. Interestingly enough, as modern times have come and more conservative people have joined the Church of the Brethren and many other of the nonviolent churches, there have been splits, as there always are. And the people who are a little more conservative, and let me give you this nugget of information I just stumbled onto. There is a piece of the brain called the amygdala. It's about the size of a pea back in the middle part of your lower back brain. That controls, or is the route, the pattern for all the emotions that you have. Fear, anger, love, any of your strong emotions course through this amygdala. In studies they have done, and I'm not sure how they did this, people whose amygdala is a little bit larger, even the size of a grain of sand or bigger, and I'm not sure how they measure this, have a greater tendency toward authoritarianism, toward right and wrong, toward black and white, toward being excited and emotionally involved in something. So if you look at 40% of the population, they really can't help hating people. They really can't help putting up nasty signs. Speaking of which, has anybody seen the sign of DeSantis in Florida holding up a big sign standing in the floodwaters saying, "Help me, Brandon"? Help me, Brandon. Does anybody know? Have you heard the Brandon thing before? Yeah, we all know what that meant. All of a sudden, the government of Florida, which has denounced any kind of public aid for disasters, now they need the help because of the trouble Florida is in. So that's just a little sidelight. Okay, voluntary church membership and believers' baptism. The primary belief, and that's the rebaptism thing. When you join the Church of the Brethren, you don't join until you're 14, 15, 16, whatever. You can join at any age, but you choose to be baptized. And one of the things that they do is what they call trine immersion. Some Baptist churches will dip you 3 times backwards. Some churches will dip you 3 times forwards. The interesting thing is about people, no matter where they are or who they are or what they believe, they always come up with their own little set of rules. This is the way Christ would have done it. He put people in head first, or he put them in back first. They all have their reasons for saying it, and they all say, this is what we're going to do. The Church of the Brethren, the Baptist, the basic nonconformist churches do not believe in force in religion. That is another one of their tenets. You don't force anybody, which is the kind of thing that you are used to. You don't force anybody to do anything. You don't say you have to believe this. You believe what you want to believe. You say what you want to say. All we ask is that you are respectful and polite and do not insult people. So there's differences in the way all of these things are carried out. And let me get back to where this kind of came from. This started with the Anabaptist tradition, but out of that came the Amish, the Hutterites, the Mennonites, the Schwarzenau Brethren, the River Brethren, the Bruderhof, the Apostolic Christian Church, Old Order Anabaptist churches including Old Order Amish, Old Order Mennonites, Old Order River Brethren, Old Order German Baptist Brethren, and the Church of the Brethren, and then there's Dunkard Brethren, Conservative Mennonites, Beachy Amish. Everybody, once they form a group, then half of the group or a third of the group says, I don't like the way you prayer coverings, the women wear prayer coverings because Christ said to cover your head. Church of the Brethren, they can be a little frilly white cap that you can see through, or it can be a solid color. It can have frills around the edges. I mean, every little group is different, and that's the interesting thing about the Amish. They have taken self-rule to the nth degree, Whatever the bishop and the group of Amish decides, that is what their church does. There is no general Amish rule of order all the way through. And that's why some places you'll see Amish buggies that have sides, windshields, windshield wipers, electric lights, flashing lights for safety. In other places you'll see basically an open buggy and two big black umbrellas, which is all you have to protect yourself from the weather or the wind. And that's what you use. That's what the church decides. I've told you about the Amish guy that I buy my metal from for roofs. He has to have a phone to run his business. He runs $1 million, I'm assuming $1 million business. He's got semi-trucks coming in there with loads of metal all the time. But his phone is a payphone in a payphone booth out at the edge of his property. He can't even have it in his office in the building, and he can't even have it on the outside wall of his office. It has to be clear out at the end of his property, so he has to walk out there to get his messages. And you never talk to him because he doesn't stand around the phone. You call him, you leave a message, and he'll go out and get the message. Some Amish use power tools. They'll use other people's power tools, and they'll use electricity, but they won't use electricity at home. Just interesting. If you look at Facebook and YouTube, now there's all kinds of what we in northern Indiana call jerked over Amish. That's Amish men and women who've left the church. And they all have their own little Facebook channels now, and they all tell you all kinds of stories about what the Amish life is like. Really, really interesting. Really nice people, but they stopped schooling in 8th grade. And so they learn the basics of life, but one tenet that they all seem to have is this simple living and honesty. A handshake is your agreement. The one guy that I've seen quite a bit is a truck driver now, and he's got a good sense of humor, plays jokes on people, but he is an honest, likable, nice person. Not all Amish are like that. Amish are, some people say they're craftsmen. I've seen some things that the Amish have built which are not very crafty. And they are also very good business people. Just because they won't cheat you doesn't mean they won't shade things. When we were milking cows, my dad was a vet and had a lot of Amish customers, Amish clients that he went to. They would give him cows that they didn't want, and he would buy them and bring them and give them to us to milk. A couple times, those cows had mastitis, which is an infection in the milk and the udder, which it's an infection that the dairies won't accept the milk with that. So if you get mastitis in your bulk tank, you're screwed. You got to dump the whole thing. So we would always check them when they came in first. They never told him he had mastitis. And I'm not sure, being a vet, why he didn't check them first before he gave them to us. Maybe he just trusted them. But we got 2 or 3 that had mastitis. They were dumping their cows that they would have had to sell for slaughter, but they found a sucker to buy them for cash. And of course, he got a really good deal on them. The other thing that we got, which was kind of funny and a positive for us, when the Amish got a heifer with really short little tits, the Amish milk by hand. You know how hard it is to squeeze something that's about the size of your finger? We use milking machines, so man, we snapped those babies right up. They were good producers, they just weren't good for the Amish. So that was a kind of a deal that worked out for both of us. And that's the kind of deal you want to see when you're doing business with somebody who you trust. Is that's something they didn't want, so it was a decrease in value to them. It was something that was worth something to us, and we would give them a fair price for it. The mastitis deal, that was a dirty trick. So I mean, you still gotta be aware of what you're dealing with. Okay, we went through all the churches. Here's your baptism, and another one is, how many know what foot washing is? If you remember the Last Supper, and I don't know about the Amish, I haven't heard anything to say about that, but the German Baptist Brethren, the Church of the Brethren, practice for their meal, your communion meal, is a group meal, and they have a foot washing ceremony. And basically, they have a tub of warm water that you pass around, and you go down the line. Each person, while everybody takes their shoes off, each person washes the feet. And of course, being old order and being simple, the women are on one side and the men are on the other. You're not intermingling, but it is a real sense of humility and simplicity, and takes you back to what the Last Supper was really like. They also do, being a community in a rural church, what they call bread and sop. They have white bread that they soak in the au juice from roast beef, and they have roast beef. So that is the communion supper. It's not bread and cup. It's roast beef and white bread soaked in the juice of the roast beef. So it is a true communion meal, a true reliving of the Last Supper. Pretty impressive, and anybody is allowed to take part, but you have to say you have faith in what you're doing. You're not doing this just for fun. You're doing it because you want to take part in communion. But not like some churches where if you aren't a member of the church, you can't have communion. In the bread and cup communion, which most Church of the Brethren do now, anybody is invited to take the cup and take the bread. So, and that's interesting. The local church that we believe in, it's a little soft thing that they make in the church, but it has to be stuck with a 5-tine fork. Not 4 times, not 3 times, 5 times. You poke it numerous times. I'm not sure where that came from. Just one of those little interesting things that you'll find. So we've had quite a history on this. We've done that. That's another foot washing thing. So I think we're kind of running out of time. I had a lot more stuff here, so we can do it on later. You got the love feast, laying on of hands, and I'm sure you've seen that with many churches. When a new leader is brought into position, everybody lays on of hands and has a prayer. That's common with the Church of the Brethren. Anointing with oil. If you're sick or worried or whatever, the pastor or the deacons will come and put a cross of holy oil on your forehead and say a prayer. Happens quite a bit before surgery. That's a pretty common practice in the Church of the Brethren. The Holy Kiss used to be before every church service in the Church of the Brethren, and it still is with some churches. You stand up and say, "Peace be with you, peace be with you," and you can do the Holy Kiss, with this just kind of the European touch cheeks type thing. And that was from the basic history of the Bible with the Holy Kiss. Turning the other cheek. That's the pacifist stance, which is what Christ taught. No oaths, because Christ said not to swear. That is where when you go to court and they ask you to affirm something, that is a responsibility, or that is due to the Anabaptist churches saying we will not swear on the Bible. We will affirm to tell the truth, but we will not swear on the Bible. Going the second mile, which means giving if someone asks for your coat, you give them your coat. Giving a cup of cold water. Reconciliation, the Church of the Brethren practices if there's a conflict between members of the church, the deacons will go talk to each person individually and then try to bring the two people together and try and reconcile people. They actually make an active effort to do that. Some churches are more involved in that than others, and it's kind of what's happening is as the church has become more and more urbanized, a lot of these things are kind of going by the wayside because they're considered embarrassing or too simple or too historical or whatever. Repeated forgiveness, humility, nonviolence, sharing possessions, all the things that a simple farmer's life that you could see where it started out with farming, where a handshake was your word and you didn't take people to court and you tried to be honest in your dealings with other people. A full measure man. When he pulled up to the mill, the miller didn't say, "We need to check and make sure there's not a brick at the bottom of his bag. We trust Cyrus to be an honest man. We don't have to check him." That's kind of what we strive to be as Unitarians, and it's what we want to strive to be as Church of the Brethren. Comments, questions? Yes?
I always thought that Church of the Brethren was an offshoot of the Quaker.
No.
Okay.
Quaker is a separate church started in England. They have their own set of beliefs. When we can go into that, we can talk about the Quakers, since there's so many of them in Richmond. They are another of the peace churches. The Mennonites, the Quakers, and the Church of the Brethren are the churches that actually have a peace stance. When you go if you get drafted in the military, when there was a draft, you could actually say, "I'm a non-combatant, and I will serve," which didn't mean you wouldn't serve. You served wherever the army or the military sent you, and a lot of those people became medics and basically sacrificed their lives to save other people. But their statement was, "I will not kill somebody just for any reason." And this applies, and that the nonviolence thing, because I have to question myself on that. If somebody was about to hurt my wife, I would try not to kill them, but I would not let them hurt my wife. I mean, I'm a non-violent person. I do not believe in violence, but I'm not an idiot either. So, but some of these people believe it, just like this gentleman here who saved the guy's life, who turned around and burned him at the stake. I mean, not just killed him, tortured him, burned him at the stake. He knew what was going to happen when he did that, and saving a life was more important than his own life. And that's the kind of funny thing that happens with religion, is where we say human life is sacred, but people seem to throw their lives away for just all kinds of idiotic things, sacrifice their lives for things that you wouldn't think would be worth sacrificing it for. But there are some things that maybe are worth sacrificing it for. That's something everybody has to come to on their own.
What's their orientation or sphere of influence in social justice?
Church of the Brethren has peace teams. They actually have, and because Church of the Brethren has a long history of construction, I went to North Carolina, I think it was North or South Carolina, after the Hurricane Hugo, which was like years and years ago. And they go down just kind of like Jimmy Carter and the Baptists build houses for Habitat for Humanity. Church of the Brethren has what they call disaster response teams. They'll go down, they provide food, they'll provide babysitting and take care of the women, will go down and take care of the families, and now the women and the men will go down and rebuild houses. That's what we did. We rebuilt houses that had been destroyed in Hugo. The church provides the materials, the money, and the labor, and it's all put up. And the interesting thing about Church of the Brethren is, you've heard about the ministries that go to South America and build schools and things like that. Most of those conservative Christian ministries require the people coming to the church to go to church service and to become followers of Jehovah's Witness or whatever church they're with. The Church of the Brethren provides this construction service absolutely without any kind of requirement. You don't have to go to church, you don't have to say a prayer. They say a prayer every morning when they start, and you're welcome to join, but you're not expected to, and you're not forced to. So they have a pretty big history of that. Also, anybody heard of Dan West? Anybody heard of Heifer Project? Heifer Project.
Yes.
Heifer Project was started by Dan West, who was a Church of the Brethren in 1947, 46 or 47 after World War II, from Pleasant Hill, Ohio. He got the idea that because of the devastation in Europe, farmers, Simple Brethren farmers, had a few extra cattle that they could donate instead of money, so they would donate heifers. They loaded them on a ship, took them to Europe, and donated them and spread them around, and they started doing that every year. And so Dan West was the instigator of that. Heifer Project has grown into basically what's now crop. And now you can still donate heifers, but you can donate pigs, chickens, rabbits, fish, bees.
Or you can donate money in lieu of that. I think we did that a few years back here.
Yes. Actually, you almost have to donate money, because I'm assuming if you gave them a heifer, they would figure out a way to do it. But they would rather have you give $500 for a heifer, $250 for a pig, $20 for a rabbit, or $25 for 5 chicks or whatever. And Heifer Project, and this is what Dan West started, when you get this free heifer, when she grows up and is bred, the first calf has to be given to somebody else. It's like Habitat for Humanity. When Habitat for Humanity builds a house for you, you have to help build that house, and you have to help build somebody else's house. It's not just a project to give people stuff. It's a project to create humanity, to have people help other people. And to think of President Carter, who spent his entire life doing this and was castigated for not drinking or not smoking or for being a religious zealot. He's the only one who has truly lived his religion and continued to live his religion after he retired from the presidency, and is still doing it even now. He's not able now to build houses, but he was up till a couple years ago. And Rosalind has now died, but Jimmy is still there, hanging on by a thread. So, okay, then I went on way too long here. But I wanted you to know about Dan West, because that's a local thing in Pleasant Hill, and it has worldwide impact now.
Yeah.
Okay, where are we? Oh, offering. If you have something to share, please put it in. And if you need something, let us know. And we're going to hear Try to Remember. No, yeah, Try to Remember.
His granddad.
It's a ghost.
All right, our closing hymn is 290. Bring, O past, your honor. extinguishing the chalice is abundant grace. From this ground, let us sow mercy, justice, and compassion. Let us offer our stories to provide our staples of wisdom. And when we do, let us create and experience the presence and affirmation that allows us to connect with our theological imaginations so that the harvest of our faith will be abundant grace. The postlude is Our Love is Here to Stay. Picture, anybody know what that is?
Is that Amish church services?
Amish church services. The Amish have church every other week on Sunday, and they go to somebody's house. Women on one side, men on the other, and it lasts basically all day long. And they actually have a singing service that you can come back to later in the day, and the kids stay and play ball and have a good time. But they all come in their buggies, and they're all lined up for the service. And they do it not the same place, they go to a different place each time, so very community oriented. We leave our last candle, we leave it lit for Margaret, actually for Dolly, who hopefully you haven't heard anything, but hopefully she's doing well, and Cecil, she makes it occasionally, and hopefully she's able to watch and get some support from that. And also for the victims from Helena, the people in Springfield, for all those people in the world who need support and care and concern, we'll leave our candle lit for them. All right, there's coffee and donuts. And that finishes our service at First Universalist in New Madison.
Yeah.
I remember we had a group from Madison